Most people believe education is the escape hatch from financial struggle, degrees, certifications, intelligence, and yet some of the smartest people remain stuck, stressed, and quietly broke. This isn't because they lack knowledge. It's because knowledge without wisdom can become a trap. Today, we're going to talk about 10 brutal reasons educated people stay poor, not to shame, but to wake up, because wealth isn't built in classrooms. It's built in habits, patience, and uncomfortable truths. Education is a wonderful thing. It opens doors, it sharpens thinking, it builds confidence. But here's a hard truth that rarely gets said out loud. Education alone does not make anyone wealthy. In fact, for many people, it becomes the very reason they stay stuck. Let's talk honestly, without blame, without judgment, about why. Reason 1, confusing intelligence with wisdom. Smart people often believe they can outthink risk, but money doesn't reward clever ideas. It rewards consistent behavior. Overspending doesn't care how educated someone is. Debt doesn't care how many books have been read. Wisdom is quiet. It says, I don't need this today. Reason 2, living to match an image. Education raises expectations, sometimes dangerously so. A certain lifestyle feels deserved. A certain car feels appropriate. A certain standard feels non-negotiable. But wealth grows in the gap between what is earned and what is spent. When ego spends first, freedom never arrives. Reason 3, trading time for credentials, not ownership. Many educated people master a skill, then spend their entire life renting it out by the hour. Ownership is postponed. Equity is delayed. Compounding is misunderstood. Income pays bills. Ownership builds futures. Reason 4, overanalyzing instead of acting. Education trains the mind to seek certainty, but investing and life rarely offer it. Opportunities don't wait for perfect understanding. They reward those willing to start small, stay patient, and learn by doing. Thinking feels productive. Action changes outcomes. Reason 5, fear wearing the mask of stability. A secure paycheck feels safe. But safety today can cost freedom tomorrow. Fear whispers, don't risk it, stay where you are. This is good enough. Yet growth has never lived inside comfort. Reason 6, delaying the long game. Many educated people plan for promotions, not decades. They focus on next year's raise, not next generation's security. They chase short-term validation instead of long-term value. Wealth doesn't rush. It compounds quietly while patience does the heavy lifting. Reason 7, mistaking complexity for sophistication. Complicated strategies feel intelligent, simple ones feel boring, but boring is powerful. Saving consistently, investing patiently, avoiding unnecessary risk. The basics done for a long time outperform brilliance done briefly. Reason 8, ignoring the emotional side of money. Money is never just numbers. It's fear. It's pride. It's comparison. Until emotions are mastered, income will always find a way to disappear. Self-awareness is the highest paying skill no school teaches. Reason 9, believing they're too late. Education often comes with a timeline. Graduate by this age. Earn by that age. When reality doesn't match the plan, discouragement sets in. But compounding doesn't care about age, it cares about consistency. Starting late still beats never starting at all. Reason 10, forgetting that wealth is a character test. Money amplifies habits already present. Discipline grows discipline. Carelessness multiplies regret. Wealth isn't built by knowing more. It's built by becoming more patient, more humble, and more intentional. Knowledge is often celebrated as the ultimate advantage. We are told that if we learn more, earn more degrees, and sharpen our thinking, success will naturally follow. But experience quietly teaches a different lesson, one that is uncomfortable, humbling, and deeply important. Knowledge without discipline is power wasted. Understanding what to do is not the same as doing it. Many people know exactly how money works. They understand interest, risk, savings, and investment principles. They can explain compound growth in detail and speak fluently about financial mistakes. And yet, their own lives show little evidence of that understanding. The gap between knowing and living is where discipline is missing. Discipline is the ability to act consistently in alignment with long-term values, even when emotions pull in the opposite direction. It is choosing restraint when impulse is louder. It is repetition without applause. Knowledge can be acquired quickly, but discipline is built slowly, often in silence, often through discomfort. Without discipline, knowledge becomes a source of frustration rather than freedom. It creates awareness without progress. A person knows better, yet behaves the same. That internal conflict is exhausting. It leads to self-criticism, doubt, and the feeling of being stuck despite being capable. In matters of money, discipline matters more than intelligence. Spending habits don't collapse because of ignorance. They collapse because of emotion. Fear, desire, comparison, and impatience override logic again and again. No spreadsheet can protect against undisciplined behavior. No strategy survives repeated emotional decisions. Discipline turns knowledge into results by slowing life down. It forces pauses. It asks uncomfortable questions. Do I need this now? Will this matter in 10 years? Am I acting from desire or from intention? These pauses are where power lives. Without them, knowledge rushes headfirst into poor decisions. One of the great misunderstandings is believing discipline is restrictive. In reality, discipline is deeply freeing. It removes chaos, it creates clarity, it replaces constant decision-making with principles. When discipline is present, fewer choices are needed because the standards are already set. Knowledge says this is how compounding works. Discipline says, I will give it time. Knowledge says, debt is dangerous. Discipline says, I will say no today. Knowledge says long-term thinking wins. Discipline says, I won't chase what everyone else is chasing. Without discipline, knowledge turns into arrogance. A person begins to believe awareness alone is enough, but awareness does not protect against mistakes. Habits do. The world is filled with highly informed people who repeat the same errors because discipline never became part of their identity. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about direction. Small, repeated actions, saving consistently, avoiding unnecessary risk, living below one's means outperform bursts of brilliance followed by long periods of neglect. Wealth, growth, and stability all reward consistency, not intensity. There is also a spiritual dimension to discipline. It requires humility, the acceptance that impulses cannot always be trusted. It requires patience, the willingness to wait for outcomes that cannot be rushed. And it requires self-respect, the decision to honor future well-being over present comfort. When discipline is absent, knowledge becomes a reminder of what should have been done. When discipline is present, knowledge becomes a tool quietly building progress in the background. The most powerful people are not those who know the most, but those who can repeatedly act on simple truths. They understand that success is rarely about discovering something new. More often, it is about obeying what has always been known. Knowledge is potential energy. Discipline is the force that releases it. Without discipline, knowledge sits unused, impressive but ineffective. With discipline, even modest knowledge compounds into extraordinary outcomes. And in the end, it is not what is known that changes a life. It is what is practiced patiently and consistently over time, Ego is more expensive than ignorance. Ignorance can be corrected. Ego resists correction. Not knowing something is temporary. It invites learning, growth, and humility, but ego, the need to appear competent, successful, or ahead, quietly blocks progress while pretending to protect dignity. Over time, ego becomes far more expensive than ignorance ever could be. Ego whispers that admitting uncertainty is weakness. It encourages people to act confident rather than be careful. It prioritizes appearances over outcomes. And in doing so, it creates costly decisions that compound quietly, year after year. In money, ego often shows up disguised as success. A larger lifestyle feels justified. A certain standard feels earned. Choices are made not from need or long-term value, but from how they will be perceived. The question shifts from, "Is this wise?" to "What will others think?" That shift alone can erase years of progress. Ignorance says, "I don't know, teach me." Ego says, "I already know, watch me." The first opens doors, the second closes them. Ego encourages premature confidence. It pushes people to act before they are ready, invest before they understand, and spend before they can afford. It creates the illusion of control, quietly inviting unnecessary risk. Ignorance may delay action, but ego accelerates mistakes. One of ego's most dangerous habits is comparison. Measuring progress against others turns life into a performance. Decisions become reactive. Spending becomes competitive. Success becomes loud instead of stable. Comparison does not inspire growth. It distorts judgment. When ego is in charge, learning stops. Feedback feels like an attack. Advice feels like criticism. Warnings feel insulting. Ego would rather defend a bad decision than correct it. And every time that happens, the cost increases, not just financially, but emotionally. Ego also demands speed. It hates waiting. It resents slow progress. It wants visible results now. But meaningful growth, financial or personal, moves quietly and often looks unimpressive in the early years. Ego abandons the long path because it doesn't offer immediate validation. Ignorance, by contrast, can be patient. It allows room to observe, to ask, to study. It is comfortable saying, "I'm not ready yet." That patience protects capital, relationships, and peace of mind. Another hidden cost of ego is debt, both financial and psychological. Ego borrows from the future to impress the present. It spends tomorrow's freedom to support today's image. The interest is not just monetary. It shows up as stress, anxiety, and the constant pressure to maintain a story that no longer serves reality. Ego also isolates. It prevents collaboration. It avoids mentorship. It resists accountability. Growth rarely happens alone, yet ego insists on proving independence. Ignorance, on the other hand, invites connection. It creates space for guidance and shared learning. True confidence does not announce itself. It is quiet, grounded, and flexible. It is willing to change course without embarrassment. It understands that being wrong is not failure, it is information. The most resilient people are not those who avoid mistakes entirely, but those who catch them early. That requires humility. It requires choosing long-term truth over short-term pride. It requires the strength to say, "This isn't working and I'm willing to adjust." Ego resists that moment. It doubles down. It justifies. It delays. And with every delay, the cost increases. Freedom, financial and emotional, belongs to those who value learning more than looking good. They protect their future by sacrificing their image when necessary. They understand that dignity is not lost by admitting ignorance, but by refusing to grow. Ignorance is a gap. Ego is a wall. Gaps can be filled. Walls keep progress out. When ego steps aside, wisdom steps in. Decisions become calmer. Risks become measured. Growth becomes sustainable. The pressure to perform fades, replaced by the confidence of alignment. In the end, ignorance can be taught away. Ego must be unlearned. And those who learn that lesson early discover something powerful. Letting go of ego is not a loss. It is one of the most profitable decisions a person can ever make. Time is the real currency, not money. Money is visible. Time is not. Because money can be counted, tracked, and displayed, it is often mistaken as the most valuable resource. But money can be earned again. Time cannot. Once a moment passes, it is gone forever, carrying its potential with it. This is why time, not money, is the true currency of life. Many people spend their days chasing income while quietly spending their years without intention. They trade hours for paychecks, believing that more money will eventually buy freedom. But freedom purchased late is often freedom never fully lived. Time lost is opportunity lost, and no amount of money can reverse that exchange. Time compounds more powerfully than money. The way it is invested determines the direction of an entire life. Small choices made daily, how mornings begin, where attention goes, what habits are repeated, shape outcomes far more than occasional financial decisions. Money follows direction. Time creates it. One of the most common mistakes is measuring success only in income. Income is useful, but it reveals nothing about how life is experienced. A person can earn well and still feel poor, rushed, exhausted, and disconnected. Another can earn modestly and feel rich, calm, focused, and present. The difference is not income, it is control over time. Time is not respected, money becomes a distraction. People spend to compensate for exhaustion. They buy convenience instead of building margin. They chase relief rather than redesigning how their days are structured. In doing so, money is used to mask a time problem instead of solving it. Time demands boundaries. Without them, it is consumed by urgency, expectation, and noise. The world rewards busyness, but busyness is not progress. Constant activity often hides a lack of direction. True progress is quieter. It involves deliberate pauses, thoughtful planning, and the patience to delay rewards. Those who understand the value of time think differently about work. They don't ask only, how much does this pay? They also ask, what does this cost in years, energy, and attention? Every commitment has a price beyond money. Some costs are invisible until it is too late to recover them. Ownership of time is the foundation of freedom. When time is controlled by others, life becomes reactive. When time is aligned with values, life becomes intentional. This is why long-term thinking matters so deeply. Decisions made today determine how much time will be available tomorrow. Time rewards those who start early and stay consistent. Compounding is often discussed in financial terms, but its most powerful form is behavioral. Skills grow, relationships deepen, and wisdom accumulates when time is given space to work. Rushing interrupts compounding. Patience accelerates it. There is also a spiritual element to time. Time is where meaning lives. Moments of connection, reflection, and growth cannot be stored for later use. They must be lived as they happen. When time is sacrificed entirely for future gain, life becomes a waiting room, always preparing, never arriving. Many people plan carefully for money and casually for time. Budgets are created for finances, but days are left unstructured. Yet how time is spent determines what money is ultimately worth. Wealth without time to enjoy it is simply delayed regret. Understanding time as currency changes priorities. It encourages investment in health, learning, and relationships, assets that protect future time. Neglecting these creates hidden liabilities that demand repayment later, often with interest in the form of fatigue, stress, or lost opportunities. Time also reveals truth. Short-term decisions can look successful, but time exposes their real cost. Sustainable choices may feel slow, but time amplifies their benefits. This is why patience is not passive, it is strategic. The goal is not to escape work, but to work in a way that respects time, to build systems that create leverage, to choose progress over pressure, to design life intentionally rather than drifting through it reactively. Money is a tool. Time is the context in which that tool has meaning. When time is honored, money becomes useful. When time is ignored, money becomes hollow. In the end, wealth is not measured by what is accumulated, but by how life is experienced over time. Those who understand this protect their days as carefully as their dollars. They know that the richest life is not the one with the most money, but the one with the most well-used time. Fear disguised as security keeps people stuck. Security feels comforting. It feels responsible. It feels mature. But sometimes what looks like security is simply fear wearing a respectable disguise. Fear rarely announces itself honestly. It doesn't say, "I'm afraid to change." Instead, it says, "This is stable." It says, "At least this is predictable." It says, "Now isn't the right time." Over time, these phrases become habits, and those habits quietly build a cage that feels safe but limits growth. True security is not the absence of risk, it is the ability to adapt. When life changes, and it always does, rigid safety becomes vulnerability. What once felt secure can quickly become fragile if it depends entirely on things outside personal control. Fear disguised as security often shows up in routines that no longer serve. A familiar path is followed even when it leads nowhere. Comfort replaces curiosity. Growth is postponed in the name of responsibility. The cost is not immediate, but it compounds silently. Staying in place feels safe because movement carries uncertainty. The unknown triggers discomfort, doubt, and the possibility of failure. But avoiding failure does not create success, it creates stagnation. Over time, stagnation becomes its own form of risk. Many people mistake predictability for progress. Days begin to repeat, years pass quickly, life becomes a loop instead of a journey. Nothing feels wrong. Yet something always feels missing. That feeling is not ingratitude, it is unrealized potential asking for attention. Fear often justifies itself with logic. It lists worst-case scenarios. It highlights responsibilities. It reminds of past mistakes. It sounds intelligent and cautious, which makes it harder to question. But caution without growth slowly erodes confidence. Each avoided risk reinforces the belief that change is dangerous. True growth requires discomfort. Not reckless risk, but intentional movement beyond what is familiar. The first step is rarely dramatic. It often begins with curiosity, asking, "What if there's more?" That question alone challenges fear's authority. Security built on fear is brittle. It depends on circumstances remaining the same. Security built on skill, adaptability, and self-trust is resilient. It allows flexibility. It welcomes learning. It prepares for change instead of resisting it. Fear disguised as security also steals time. Waiting for perfect conditions delays action indefinitely. The right moment rarely announces itself. Progress favors those who move with imperfect information but clear intention. One of fear's greatest tricks is convincing people that staying still is neutral. It is not. Standing still while the world moves forward is a decision with consequences. Opportunities do not pause. Skills do not sharpen on their own. Confidence fades when it is not exercised. There is also an emotional cost. Living beneath potential C breeds quiet regret. It shows up as restlessness, frustration, or envy, not because others are ahead, but because a deeper part of the self knows growth has been avoided. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move despite it. Courage does not eliminate uncertainty. It accepts it as part of the process. The goal is not to feel ready, but to become ready through action. Security that truly serves is built over time. It comes from learning, saving, investing in skills, and creating options. It is flexible, not rigid. It allows adjustment when conditions change. It is rooted in self-trust rather than external guarantees. Fear wants comfort now. Growth asks for courage today and rewards it later. The difference between being stuck and being stable is subtle but profound. Stability supports growth. Stagnation resists it. One expands possibilities. The other quietly shrinks them. The moment fear is recognized for what it is, its power weakens. Questioning comfort does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means redefining it. Responsibility includes honoring potential, not just protecting what already exists. In the end, safety is not found in avoiding change. It is found in becoming capable of handling it. When fear stops pretending to be security, movement begins. And with movement comes learning, confidence, and the quiet realization that what once felt risky was actually the path forward all along.